This is the Linear Algebra Lectures video series. You can find more information about this video as well as a link to the written textbook in the description below. Stick around to the end of the video to learn more about this video series and the associated teaching and learning tools I've created for it. Lecture 4, Row Reduction. Our objectives for this lecture are to learn to perform row operations to transform a matrix into echelon form or reduced echelon form, to identify pivot columns of a matrix, and to use technology to perform row reduction. So let's remember the definition of echelon form from the previous lecture. A matrix is in echelon form if it satisfies all three of these conditions. The first condition is that any rows of all zeros have to be below any other rows. The second is that each leading entry of a row is in a column to the right of the leading entry in the row above it. And the third condition is that all entries in a column below a leading entry must be zeros. Recall these row operations from lecture 2, the scaling operation where we multiply a row by a non-zero constant, the replacement operation, where we replace a row by the sum of itself and a multiple of another row, and the swapping operation, where we swap the positions of two rows. Row reduction is the process of applying these row operations to a matrix until it is in echelon form or reduced echelon form. If one matrix can be converted into another using row operations, we say that these two matrices are row equivalent. They're not equal, but they're equivalent via these row operations. The same matrix can be row equivalent to many different echelon forms, but only to one reduced echelon form. To help us understand the row reduction process, we need to understand what a pivot and a pivot column is. Once a matrix is in echelon form, the location of the leading entries of each row of that matrix is called a pivot. We can refer to the pivots of a matrix even when it's not in echelon form, but we can only see those pivot locations once the matrix is in that echelon form. And even though a given matrix is row equivalent to many different echelon forms, those echelon forms will all have the same pivots. And a column that contains a pivot is called a pivot column. So here's the row reduction process. One at a time, from left to right, we're going to identify the next pivot. The very first pivot is almost always in the upper left-hand corner of our matrix. The only exception is if our first column of our matrix is all zeros, and then we'll have to move to the right to find that first pivot location. After the first pivot, the following pivots are each in the row below the previous pivot, and in the leftmost column where it's possible to get, via swapping if necessary, a non-zero entry into that row without disturbing the leading entries of the previous rows. That sounds complicated, but as you see us start to work through some examples, you'll understand what that means. The second step is optional, but sometimes helpful, to use a scaling operation to make the pivot equal 1. The third step is to use replacement operations to create zeros in all positions below the pivot. Remember that that's one of our conditions for echelon form. And we always want to replace the row where you want there to be a zero using a multiple of the row that contains the pivot. And then we repeat this process. So that's a lot to digest, but as we start working through some examples, it'll start to make more sense. So let's dive in. We want to use row operations to find an echelon form for this matrix. So our first step is to locate the first pivot. And as I said earlier, the first pivot is almost always in the upper left-hand corner, and it's only not in the upper left-hand corner if our first column was all zeros. First column's not all zeros here, but we do have a zero in that first pivot location, and our pivots, which are the leading entries in our echelon form, have to be non-zero, which means we need to make that entry be non-zero. The way we're going to do that is with swapping. And we have a choice. We can swap row 1 with row 2, or we can swap row 1 with row 3, and making different choices is going to lead you to a different echelon form. So this is why our matrix can be row equivalent to different echelon forms, but we have to make a choice, so we'll go ahead and decide to swap rows 1 and 2. If you had decided to do this problem on your own, and instead swap row 1 and row 3, your solution will end up looking different than my solution, but may still be correct. So once we swap row 1 and row 2, we get a new matrix that has our pivot in our upper left-hand corner, which is that number -2. Now, what do we need to do with that pivot? Well, remember our condition for echelon form is that the entries in our matrix below each pivot must be zeros. So the 2 that I have highlighted below the pivot -2 must be a 0, and I'm going to turn that into a 0 using a replacement operation. So I'm going to replace the row that contains the entry that I want to be 0. So I'm replacing row 3. And whenever we're replacing a row, we're going to replace it with that row plus a multiple of another row. So whenever we decide to say replace row 3, the very next thing we say is by row 3 plus, and then we're using a multiple of another row. and you want to use the row that has the pivot. The pivot is located in row 1, and so now the only thing that's missing is to figure out what number would we have to multiply by row 1 so that when we add the results to row 3, that highlighted 2 there will turn into a 0. And hopefully when you think about that, you realize that you need to replace row 3 by row 3 plus 1 times row 1. And when we do that and do the arithmetic off on the side, we end up with a new matrix where we have a 0 where we wanted it. So we're done with column 1. We've got a pivot, a -2 at the top, and zeros below that pivot. And so now we need to find the next pivot entry. Our pivots go down and to the right, which means the next pivot entry is going to be the number 1 in the second column, second row. And then our goal is to make any entries below that pivot be 0. So that 10 that we have highlighted there must become a 0. So that means that we need to replace row 3. Replace it by what? Well, whenever we say replace row 3, we need to say replace row 3 by row 3, so it's the same row, plus some multiple of another row. And the other row is going to be the row that contains the pivot in the column that we're working on. That's row 2 in this case. So we want to replace row 3 by row 3 plus some number times row 2. What number would we have to multiply by row 2 to get there to be a 0 where we currently have that 10? Well, hopefully it's not too hard to see that we need to multiply row 2 by -10 and then add that result to row 3 to turn that into a 0. That's going to give us our next matrix, and when we get to this point, we can check our echelon form conditions and realize that this matrix is in echelon form, which means at this point we're done. Let's do another example. So again, we're looking to use our row operations to find an echelon form that's row equivalent to this matrix. We start by looking for the first pivot, which as usual is in the upper left-hand corner, and then our goal is to get zeros in every entry below that leading entry. How do we do that? Well, we're going to do that with replacement operations. Each place where we want there to be a 0 below that pivot, we're going to replace that row by that row plus an appropriate multiple of the row that contains the pivot. So in the second row, we have a 2, and so we need to replace row 2 by row 2 plus -2 times row 1. Notice that it's convenient that our pivot is 1, because then it's easy to figure out what number we have to multiply by that row to cancel out the entry that we want to be a 0. So there's our new row 2. And at this point, we could write the original row 3 and row 4 and do another replacement operation and so on, but that's going to start taking up a lot of space here. So instead, I'm going to consolidate this and do the replacement of row 3 and replacement of row 4 all at the same time. This saves us some space, but if you don't feel comfortable doing multiple steps at once, it's okay to write these steps all separately. So we replace row 3 by row 3 plus +3 times row 1. We replace row 4 by row 4 plus -1 times row 1. And then we've achieved our goal of getting zeros below our pivot in our first column. Now we're ready to move on and work on column number 2. So where's the pivot in column 2? Well, usually it's down and to the right. So if it's possible to get there to be a non-zero entry in that row 2, column 2 entry, then that's going to be where our next pivot is. Currently it's a 0, so currently it's not a leading entry, but we can do a swap to get it to be a leading entry. Which row do we want to swap row 2 with? Well, we don't want to swap it with row 1 because that would ruin the work that we did on column 1. So the only options are to swap row 2 with row 3 or to swap it with row 4. And there's no one right answer here. We could choose either one and both could lead us to a correct echelon form. In this case, I've decided to swap row 2 with row 3, but it would be just as correct and just as proper to swap it with row 4 instead. You would just end up with a different echelon form. Now, that pivot is non-zero, which is good. And optionally, we could choose to scale that pivot to scale row 2 by a factor of 1/12 to turn that pivot into a 1. That makes it convenient to continue our work on column 2 here, but it's not required. In this case, I have decided to do it, but if you decided you didn't need to do it, that's also okay. So I've scaled row 2 by a factor of 1/12 to get a new row 2. And now our goal is to get zeros below that pivot. We already have a 0 below that pivot in row 3, so we need to work on row 4 to get there to be a 0 below that pivot. That's going to be a replacement operation. We'll replace row 4 by row 4 plus +8 times row 2. Changing that pivot to be a 1 made it easier to figure out that the number that we needed there was 8. And when we do that operation, we're done with column 2. We have our pivot and zeros below that pivot. Now we're ready to move on to column 3. So again, our pivot goes down and to the right. So that place where we have -17, that's our next pivot. and then our goal is to work to get that 24 to be a 0. That's going to be a replacement operation, but this time let's choose not to scale row 3 to turn that pivot into a 1, and think about what we would have to do. Well, we have to understand what number would we have to multiply by row 3 so that when we add the results to row 4, everything cancels out and we get a 0 where we currently have that 24. Well, if you think about it, the number that we need there is 24/17. If we multiply row 3 by 24/17, that negative 17 will become a negative 24. We add that to the positive 24, and we get the 0 as desired. So it's really up to you in these kinds of problems if you want to scale your rows to turn your pivots into 1s. It is convenient. It makes it easier to think about those missing numbers that we need, but it's not required. In this case, we have our echelon form, so we're done with this one. Now, sometimes, as we'll see in the next lecture, we'll want our matrix to be in reduced echelon form. Reduced echelon form is stricter than echelon form because it has 2 additional criteria. The leading entries are required to be 1s now, so we're going to be required to do that scaling operation that was optional just a minute ago. And each leading entry has to be the only non-zero entry in its column, which means we're going to need to work to get zeros above and below each of our leading entries. So here's the modified process for row reducing a matrix to reduced echelon form. Our process for identifying and locating our pivots is the same, but now step 2, which was optional previously, to scale our pivots to make them be 1, now that's required. And then in step 3, we have to use our replacement operations to create zeros above and below our pivots. And then we repeat as usual until our matrix is in reduced echelon form. So notice the differences. The scaling operation is no longer optional, and then in step 3, we have to use replacement operations to get zeros above and below. So it's a similar process just with more steps. Let's do one more example here, using row operations to find the reduced echelon form for this matrix. Remember that even though there can be multiple echelon forms, row equivalent to our original matrix, there is only going to be one reduced echelon form for any given matrix. This is nice because it means that we can compare our answers to see that we've all created the same reduced echelon form for a given matrix. All right, let's get started. So let's identify the first pivot. As usual, it's in the upper left-hand corner, and we need to work to get zeros below that pivot. Conveniently, the pivot is already the number 1, so we don't need to do any scaling operations. We do one replacement operation to turn that 4 into a 0, and then we do another replacement operation to turn that 6 into a 0. So we're replacing row 2 by row 2 plus negative 4 times row 1, and replacing row 3 by row 3 plus negative 6 times row 1. So there's the resulting matrix, and we're ready to move on to the next column. In the next column, the pivot is negative 3. We need to do 2 things. We need to scale that pivot to make it be a 1, which means we need to scale row 2 by a factor of negative 1/3. And then we need to use replacement operations to get zeros above and below that pivot. So we need to replace row 1 by row 1 plus negative 2 times row 2. And we need to replace row 3 by row 3 plus 5 times row 2. So the results are here. And once we get to that point, we can realize that, in fact, we are done because this matrix is now in reduced echelon form. Now, sometimes it'll be required for us to do row reduction by hand, and we'll talk about those situations later, but it may be convenient for you to use technology. If you have a TI-83 or TI-84 calculator, you can do row reduction on that calculator, and I'll show you the steps here. If you have a different calculator, you may need to consult the manual for that calculator to learn how to do row reduction on that calculator. So on the TI-83 or TI-84, you press second and then the X inverse button to access the matrix menu. Then you press the right arrow twice to access the edit submenu. And then if you want to edit matrix A, you just press enter. If you want to edit a different matrix, you use the arrow keys to edit whichever matrix you want to work on. Then you enter the matrix values, type the size of the matrix at the top. You always put rows first and columns second. So in this case, I'm entering a 2 by 3 matrix, which means 2 rows and 3 columns. And then you enter the values into the matrix, pressing enter every time. And then once all of your values are entered, you exit that matrix editor by pressing second and then mode. Finally, we want to row reduce the matrix that we entered. So we press second and X inverse to go back into the matrix menu. Press the right arrow to access the math submenu. Press alpha and then apps to paste RREF parentheses to the screen. Now we need to tell the calculator which matrix we want to row reduce. So we go back into the matrix menu and press 1 to paste matrix A to the screen. Type that closing parentheses and press enter to find that reduced echelon form. Now keep in mind that the TI-84, and possibly your calculator if you have a different model, will not reduce a matrix that has more rows than columns, even though our hand method that we learned will do that. So just keep in mind that this is a situation where you may have to do the row reduction by hand. These calculators also cannot help with matrices that contain variables, which is something that we're going to see a little later on in the course. And so for these problems, we're going to have to do the row reduction by hand as we've learned. Another tool that you may find useful is a computer algebra system. In this course, we're going to see several times where we use the computer algebra system Wolfram, also sometimes known as Mathematica, to perform matrix operations. To enter a matrix in Wolfram, you type it as a list of lists. So we use curly braces to enter each row of the matrix. So in this case, I have a matrix with 3 rows and 2 columns, so I enter it as a list of 3 separate rows. And then to row reduce the matrix, we type the row reduce command with capital R's. So we type row reduce, and then inside square brackets, we type our matrix. And then we get the reduced matrix as a result. Now, you may find other online matrix tools that you like better than the options that I provided here, and that's fine, although check with your instructor to make sure that you are using a tool that they approve of. But keep in mind the limitations that each of these tools has, and there may still be examples that we'll have to do by hand. Check the description below for a link to another video where I work through additional row reduction examples. Thanks for watching this video lecture. You can find links to the other videos in this series and to the written textbook in the description below. If you're an instructor, you can contact me for more information about the over 300 online linear algebra homework problems that I've created for the free My Open Math platform.